regarding the issues related to safe passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, it was decided that a mechanism should be established.
In what could prove a real setback for Israeli operations in Lebanon, the United States and Iran have agreed to establish a deconfliction cell, aimed at ensuring that military operations there are brought to an end in line with their memorandum of understanding. The announcement came from the mediators, Pakistan and Qatar, in a joint statement following US-Iran talks in Switzerland. The two countries described the discussions as taking place in a positive and constructive atmosphere, reporting what they called encouraging progress, including a new mechanism to carry the technical talks forward. Building on that understanding, the parties also agreed to set up a high-level committee to oversee the process, with working groups on nuclear issues, sanctions, and a dispute resolution mechanism. The committee approved a roadmap aimed at reaching a final agreement within 60 days. A direct communication channel was also established to prevent incidents and help ensure the safe passage of commercial vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. Pakistan and Qatar said they would keep working to support the talks, and thanked both sides for their commitment to diplomacy.
In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, greetings to the esteemed viewers. Well, we've had a very long day. The meeting started on Sunday morning with bilateral sessions with the mediators, and then around noon, 3 quadrilateral meetings were held with the participation of delegations from Iran, the United States, and 2 mediators. I think the discussion lasted for about an hour and a half, and it was decided that we would take a short half-hour break and then continue. At that same time, the offensive and threatening remarks of the President of the United States were published in the media. And this led the delegation of the Islamic Republic of Iran to explicitly announce that under such circumstances, they were not willing to continue participating in the quadrilateral meeting. Well, Qatar and Pakistan made a lot of efforts to help continue the talks. We emphasized that if the talks were to continue, it would not be in a direct manner. Rather, it would proceed within the framework of the quadrilateral and through the exchange of messages. In fact, the very reason for our presence in Switzerland from the beginning was to demand the implementation of the other parties' commitments. I have emphasized before as well that the approach of the Islamic Republic of Iran's delegation is that we must, in a way, hold the other party accountable so that they are compelled to fulfill their commitments. Well, both in that quadrilateral meeting and before it, our concerns and our objections regarding the other party's breach of commitments were expressed, especially regarding the continued violation of the ceasefire, the continued violation of commitments in accordance with the June 18th agreement by the Zionist regime. All of the text messages that were sent and received from about 6 p.m. onward up to now resulted in 2 or 3 outcomes that I think are important. First, regarding the first clause of the memorandum, a mechanism was agreed upon for. They are closely monitoring the ongoing continuation of the ceasefire agreement. With the active presence of international mediators working on the ground, this newly established mechanism, which is formally known as the Deconfliction Cell, has been implemented to ensure that all parties maintain peace and avoid any further military misunderstandings or direct confrontations during this sensitive period. Has been established. This is to ensure that the ceasefire in Lebanon will be sustained.
The Persian equivalent?
The specific terminology that you have just used fundamentally refers to a type of mechanism for conflict control, perhaps even a sophisticated system, or a framework for effectively overseeing and controlling conflict. But as I mentioned, its purpose is to ensure that the ceasefire in Lebanon, by ceasefire we essentially mean here the end of the war, because previously we were talking about a ceasefire. Now, according to the first clause of the memorandum, the agreement is that the war and military operations on all fronts, including Lebanon, must come to an end. The philosophy The reason for establishing this mechanism is so that from now on we will witness the continued cessation of war in Lebanon. Regarding the other clauses which are necessary for the start of negotiations toward a final agreement, good discussions took place and important messages were exchanged, including in relation to clauses. Articles 10 and 11, which specifically address the complex matters regarding the official issuance of all the necessary legal permits for the commercial sale of Iranian crude oil, as well as its final delivery to the other designated party. There was also very good progress made regarding the release of Iran's restricted or frozen assets. With regard to the various complex matters surrounding the guaranteed safe and secure passage of ships, it was decided that a mechanism would be established for the Strait of Hormuz, and in my opinion this is very important. Taking everything into account, a series of significant and foundational steps were formally agreed upon today to establish a solid framework and lay the necessary groundwork for starting negotiations on the final agreement. We sincerely hope that in practice we will also witness a genuine sense of seriousness and commitment from the other side. Another important point I should mention is that it was decided the specialized technical teams and expert delegations would continue their intensive work in the coming days, both on the few topics I mentioned to you and on other issues necessary for the effective implementation of this memorandum of understanding.
Mr. Spokesperson, in fact, the points you mentioned were essentially 4 main clauses. Are these the same provisions that have been issued in the form of a statement by the 2 mediators?
Well, a formal text will be issued by the 2 mediators involved in the process.
Qatar and Pakistan.
And in that document, the key general points that I mentioned to you previously will be included. This item, while acting as a formal document, will be presented as the record of the agreements reached during these 18 hours. However, as I have previously mentioned, looking well beyond this specific document, this comprehensive joint statement issued collectively by the 2 mediators, the 3 or 4 different points that I mentioned, including, for example, the issuance of the necessary permits for the export of Iranian oil, petrochemical and oil-related joint ventures, and so on, as well as the issue of releasing these 2 specific and important matters. They are important in the sense that these events must take place. So that according to clause 13 of the memorandum of understanding, dated the 28th of Qordad, we can enter the stage of negotiations for a final agreement.
Therefore, in the coming days, for example, regarding the unfreezing of assets, we should wait for its realization. Based on this achievement and the mechanism that was decided upon today in Switzerland?
Yes, that's exactly what I said. Both in this matter and regarding the issue of oil sales, these practical steps must be taken.
The specialized working groups you mentioned are essentially the same as the expert committees. How are they categorized and what groups do they form? How much of the details have been clarified?
Well, this needs to be worked on. According to clause 12, we will have a mechanism for monitoring the implementation of both parties' commitments. And starting tomorrow, the technical teams from both sides, with the presence of mediators, must hold meetings. The purpose is for them to get a bit more detailed and enter the technical working groups to discuss the various components of the memorandums. And
can we basically say that for this mission, the role of the Swiss negotiator is over?
Yes, well, for this particular stage of the process, that is correct. But as I previously mentioned to you, the technical teams will be continuing their detailed work all throughout the day tomorrow.
Anything else to add to conclude?
Thank you very much, really.
Thank you. I wish you strength for the busy day you've had, and thanks to the viewers of Kabar Network as well. Thank you, dear colleague.